I told you guys when this journey kind of began with this new health issue that there's going to be a lot of tough decisions that are going to be made, and our priorities have to go in the places that are really important to us. You know that the aquarium and the reptarium are highest priorities, right? And there's going to be some energy that's going to be a little bit tough to do in some other areas. So we have to make some kind of tough decisions. But for now, I'm just putting all of my energy into trying to make sure the reptarium is the best it possibly can be with these beautiful animals like my girl Ivy. Still is kind of my spirit animal. Still, when I'm feeling a little bit down, I can climb in here and she makes me feel absolutely wonderful. There's other areas that we're going to have to take a look at and say, hey, do we have to pull back a little bit on some other areas? And that, of course, will continue to probably be Bhb. The one thing I can certainly tell you after a week or so into this whole process, my energy is certainly not going to be what it normally is. I knew there was going to be some side effects, and there have been some side effects. There's been some days where I felt kind of cruddy, but I've still been able to come to work most of the time and spend time with these amazing animals like Night Fury here. But the fact is that my energy level is not what it used to be. I mean, instead of working till 8, 9 o'clock at night, usually by mid-afternoon, I am absolutely crushed. That means a couple things. I'm going to have to rely on the crew and Lori a lot more to make sure things are getting done. And the other thing is that we need to prioritize so that the projects that we really care about, like the reptarium and the aquarium, like I talked about, are going to have to be like the utmost important. So anyways, there's still a lot going on over at Bhb. And although our Kluber colony has certainly gotten a lot smaller, we're still breeding a lot of stuff. I mean, look at this. This is an axanthic anaconda western hognose snake. How freaking gorgeous is that snake? We still have a lot of cool stuff. We're only a couple weeks away from probably being able to start pulling eggs, which is going to be really exciting. It won't be on the level that we did last year, obviously. Maybe, you know, we might get 50 clutches. Double clutching, we might get 60 or 70 clutches, whereas usually we get hundreds and hundreds of clutches. But there's still some energy that has to go into the system with colubrids. You literally have to feed them twice a week, switch them every single day, constantly spot clean them, constantly work with them. Even though we have a very small colubrid colony, there's still work that goes into it. Thankfully, not as much work as it used to. So when it comes to the colubrid colony, I think we're in pretty good shape. When it comes to the boas and pythons, there might be some things that we're going to talk about. We're still trying to decide. This is actually a cine albino and then, of course, a cine sunset. And they actually were just breeding yesterday. She's at 28 millimeters follicles, so she probably needs one more breeding to go on. Basically, see where I've got 28 millimeters. She was just bred, and now I've got a check mark. That check mark basically just means that once a female is over 22, 23 millimeters, she's not going to eat anymore. So we put a check so we don't waste any time. Now, you can see here, this girl's already done. She's a het sunset. And then we have some 13 millimeters, 12 millimeters, and 15 millimeters. But if you see this 15 millimeter, it actually hasn't been bred since January 25th. So that's the female that I'm going to want to put the cine sunset to go in, right? It's at 15 millimeters, which is getting kind of going, right? When they get to 15 millimeters, oftentimes they jump to 20, 25 millimeters within a week or two. So it's pretty important. If I can get a breeding here with this cine sunset male, there's a pretty good chance that she's going to go to 20, 25 millimeters within 7 to 10 days. So that's kind of how you got to do things. And you just look at everything here. See, 20 millimeters, then 25 millimeters, then 30 millimeters, and look at all the breedings we have. This is actually a pastel Enchi bongo het clown, and it's bred to this absolute ripper here, which is a banana Leo clown. The fact that it's a het clown, half of them should turn out clown, half of them should be Leo, some banana, and of course we got the pastel, we got the bongo. There should be some really cool babies coming on. But during the breeding season, it's really important to keep track of where things are, right? You know, with millimeters and breeding. And now that we have a baseline ultrasound, we can go back every maybe 2 weeks and actually see what's going on. But overall, things are going pretty well. But you can see something here, like this is an extreme banana here, which is just this beautiful, gorgeous banana ball python. And it's actually being bred to an Enchi spider pumpkin. Of course, that pumpkin gene is that new gene I've got going on. But if you notice, no breedings at all. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes you miss, sometimes you just miss them, and they breed and stuff like that. I've had many clutches of eggs that, you know, you have a clutch of eggs and you're like, oh, it didn't even get bred, and it turns out that it got fathered. But when we look at the actual breeding from that particular animal, he's only bred a handful of times. 1, 2, 3, 4 times total the entire year. So we're hoping now that females are getting advanced follicles, he'll turn on to breeding, because if not, we may have to switch a different male in, right? Because at some point you go like 25 millimeters, she's either going to do one of two things. She's going to blow up to 30, 33 millimeters. She doesn't get bred. She's either going to reabsorb those eggs or she's going to lay slugs, which we don't want to happen. So that's kind of the whole process that you think. So listen, Bhb takes a lot of work, and breeding pythons takes a tremendous amount of work, because you have to always be on top of it. You got to always be thinking, you got to always be feeding, you got to always be kind of knowing what to breed and ultrasounding. So it takes a tremendous amount of energy. Don't get me wrong, I love this. I love seeing the advancement. Can't wait till we get eggs. It's going to be so exciting this year. But again, it's a lot of work. Do I think the ball python colony may have to get trimmed down a little bit? It's a possibility. You may not even remember Homer, but Homer is an albino Burmese python, actually a pearl albino Burmese python. He's a little hissy little monkey, but he's actually pretty good. We take him on educational events, and once he's out for a little bit, he's good. We have quite a few animals here that will stay in the educational ward, whether it's at Bhb or we'll actually have a back room at the aquarium for educational animals as well. So these guys stay no matter what, and we have a whole bunch of stuff. Not to mention, we're going to need a lot more animals because we have to replace all the animals from the reptarium with new animals as well. So regardless, we do have a bunch of animals at Bhb that are being cared for that'll eventually be on exhibit. Do you guys remember those black Lacertas that we got, the melanistic Lacertas? Well, he just ran away, but these guys will go on display too. We've got the jeweled Lacertas already at the reptarium. We want to do the melanistics over at the new place as well, or vice versa. So we have some of these overflow enclosures here that we just keep animals that we really want to keep going into the future and stuff like that. So these will definitely move out as soon as we get the place opened up. The real big thing to do with Bhb is like, what do I do with the rest of this aisle here? There's a lot of boas and pythons in this aisle that we just don't really know. You know, we have a bunch of stuff that is really absolutely beautiful. Take a look at this flamingo pastel jungle motley boa. Absolutely wonderful animal. But I do wonder, like, does it fit into the scheme of what we want to do, right? All these animals have to be cared for, and ultimately we have to have an idea of what we're going to be doing with them as far as the breeding. But we have to think, like, do we have the manpower, the energy, and everything else to put into all these animals? Look at how absolutely stunning that animal is. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. And we've actually produced a few viper boas. But again, you know, does it make sense to have a bunch of viper boas? Probably not. You know, when I'm healthy and I'm feeling great, of course it does, because I love that stuff. Now that I have to kind of think about, like, hey, I really need to focus on the things that are the most important, I have to start thinking what really matters and what probably is just spending a tremendous amount of time for us, right? These Indian sand boas are absolutely incredible. Love them to death. But, you know, we don't produce that many of them. Every other year we produce a litter or two. They have like 3 or 4 babies. So we're taking care of this group of 6 or 8 animals that we have to care for all the time, and it's hardly even producing. So you sit back and think, like, you know, as hard as it is, you know, I'm an animal lover. Every animal down here I love to death. You know, I want these animals so bad. But you do have to wonder, like, is it worth it to keep them if it's just kind of more work, especially when I start allocating more time and energy towards the aquarium and the reptarium. There's a bunch of stuff over here, like this T-negative albino blood python that's absolutely wonderful. It's going to go on display, right? So there's a lot of stuff here that's not going anywhere because it's going to go from here at Bhb. It's actually going to be being taken care of over at the reptarium or the new aquarium. There's a lot of animals. I can't wait to get some of this stuff on display because, you know, this animal has been such a beautiful animal for us for the last year, but it's just going to waiting to get an enclosure at the new place. Now that we're going to have enough room, we can get all this stuff out there, and it's going to be amazing. And certainly there's going to be breeding projects that may or may never make it over to the reptarium or aquarium that I'm going to keep because I love them, like the Savu python. Savu pythons are just a cool animal. You don't see them around very much. Not many people are breeding them. We've been successful the last few years. Not necessarily slated to go over to the reptarium, although you never know. But we certainly are going to be breeding them because they are freaking awesome. You know, Snap and Pop, the black-headed pythons, actually had eggs. Well, take a look at this. Where my hand is right here, that's an ovulation. This is the second clutch of black-headed pythons that we should have here. So it's pretty cool. Now, these are the ones that are off exhibit, but they're going to be on exhibit because we want to keep Snap and Pop here. Now, we're going to do a very similar enclosure over at the new place for this pair of black-headed pythons. But from going from producing no black-headed pythons to producing 2 clutches in a year, wow, am I excited about that. This is a beautiful Brazilian rainbow boa. We have Tiger Lily over on display, of course, at the reptarium, but you can see this girl is gravid. You can see how big her belly is down there, and these guys have live young. An animal about this size will probably have 12, maybe 15 live babies. Really giant litters are like 20 or 25, but, you know, I have a bunch of Brazilians, I have a bunch of Colombian rainbow boas, and I have a feeling we're going to probably downsize that a little bit. Now, we'll probably keep some because they're really cool. I have a feeling we're going to downsize that. So basically, what I'm saying is that all these animals throughout here, mainly this one and some ball pythons on the other side, we're going to probably take a close look at in the next, you know, few weeks, maybe a month, and see what we want to actually downsize and actually kind of focus our attention. It's all about focus, right? We want to focus our attention on the things that are most important. The fact that I don't have the energy that I typically have for this short period of time when I'm in treatment means I have to really be able to focus on the things that are going to be really important. And I tell you what, this aquarium build is going to take a tremendous amount of energy by me, so I have to really be focused on that. And then beyond that, we have to make sure that the crew isn't spread, right? As we went from 3 days a week open at the reptarium to 5 days a week, and then essentially 7 days a week, that means our crew is going to have to work more or different hours or something on that line. So rather than taking care of something here at Bhb, they might be able to be working at the reptarium. Of course, we're going to bring on new people as well, you know, new educators and new presenters at the aquarium and the reptarium. But the fact is, you know, we're going to have to make some tough decisions. I knew it was going to happen. Does it hurt me? Yes. Just like it hurt me when I got rid of the colubrid, it's going to hurt me getting rid of some of these animals. But at the same time, if it's the best thing to do and it's the best thing for our future, it's what we're going to have to do. And then once I beat this thing, I can always grow the collection back if I want to. And now that we're frog breeders on top of everything else, that's taking up a lot of time too. It is cool. Look at how amazing these milk frogs are. And these are ready to go, by the way. So if you're interested in Amazonian milk frogs, we have some rippers that are absolutely doing really, really well. And then you can see we have a bunch of tadpoles in here that are about to metamorphose here in the next week or two to become little froglets as well. And then we had another clutch of pigs, which is just crazy. And then you got to remember, we still have leopard geckos. We have our New Caledonia stuff. We have a lot of animals. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. It's like over time, you don't realize how you just like acquire things. You're like, oh, that's so cool. Let's get this pair. Let's get that pair. And next thing you know, you have a ton of stuff. But again, when you have the energy and you passionate as I am and passionate as my crew is, you can make it happen. But now again, you got to pull back a little bit and say like, okay, for the future, what's the best decisions to make, right? It's going to be difficult, but like I said, we still have so many amazing animals to love. You got to remember that, you know, I talk about the legacy aquarium, which is the legacy. You know, again, whether I'm around for a short period of time or I'm around for the next 30 years, it is about legacy, right? And although I love Bhb and I love producing snakes, and in a way that helps too, right? Because if you're having a snake and someone's buying it as a pet or maybe as a breeder or something like that, you're spreading the love, right? You know, so as someone buys that animal, their family members fall in love with it, their neighbors fall in, their friends fall in love with it. So you're still spreading the love, right? But the fact is that the reptarium and aquarium, it's a different level, right? Because people are coming in for the experience and you're really getting them an experience that's amazing. So that's where my focus is. That's where my legacy is, as I've been saying, and that's why we call it the Legacy Aquarium, is because, listen, we want to leave a legacy for people for decades and decades to come that are absolutely in love with animals. So we'll make decisions as they come, but you can kind of see where my priorities are. And now that we're 5 days into treatment, we have an idea of what it's going to be like, you know, my energy level. Now I have to start making decisions, kind of align myself with the energy that I'm going to have over the next several months or year or however long it takes to get through this treatment.